My name is Clara Hammond. I'm 22 years old now. But this story doesn't begin with blood or knives or police lights flashing outside my childhood home. It begins with silence. The kind of silence that settles into a house after grief has already taken everything loud. I was 16 when our home in Riverside, California, stopped feeling like a place where I belonged. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. A modest craftsman-style house on a quiet street, white fence, trim lawn, neighbors who waved, the kind of place people assumed was safe. It wasn't. My mother, Catherine Hammond, died when I was 13. Ovarian cancer. 8 months. That was all it took to turn a woman who ran half marathons and woke up laughing into someone fragile, skeletal, apologizing for needing help to sit up in bed. I watched her disappear in pieces. My father, Gerald, disappeared too, just in a different way. After the funeral, he became a man on autopilot. Same routine, same expressionless stare. He worked long shifts at the aerospace plant, came home, reheated frozen meals, and sat in front of the TV without really watching it. Sometimes I'd talk to him and realize minutes later he hadn't heard a single word. We were grieving in parallel, never together. I was drowning, and so was he. But instead of reaching for each other, we both sank quietly. Then Simone Caldwell walked into our lives. She was a bartender at Hank's Steakhouse, where Dad started going every Thursday night after work. He said she made him feel alive again, said she listened, said she understood him. She was 34, blonde, sharp-eyed, confident in a way that filled rooms and left no space for anyone else. They dated for 5 months. That was it. 5 months after my mother's death anniversary, my father proposed, with my grandmother's ring. I'd met Simone 4 times. When Dad told me they were getting married, I forced a smile so hard my cheeks hurt. I told myself I wanted him happy. I told myself this was healing. I told myself a lot of lies. Simone moved in 2 weeks before their courthouse wedding, arriving with 3 suitcases and an authority that felt pre-installed. From the moment she crossed the threshold, things changed. My mother's watercolor landscapes came down first, replaced by stark black and white photography that felt cold and impersonal. Family photos vanished into boxes. The sage green walls Mom loved were repainted charcoal gray. "We can't move forward while living in a museum," Simone said calmly when I objected. Dad didn't argue. He rarely argued with her about anything. Within weeks, Simone established her rules: curfews, permissions, confiscated phone, mandatory chores that somehow always multiplied. Every mistake, real or imagined, came with consequences. And she watched me constantly. If I spoke too loudly, she called it attitude. If I stayed quiet, she called it sulking. If I defended myself, she called it disrespect. Every conversation with my father happened after she'd already told her version. Clara was hostile today. She refuses to cooperate. She's trying to sabotage us. He believed her. Or maybe believing her was easier than believing he'd failed me. The emotional cuts came first, subtle, calculated. Comments about my body while I ate breakfast. Comparisons to other girls. Reminders that I was lucky she tolerated me. "She's trying to help you," Dad would say. "She's building structure. You need to give her a chance." I needed someone to protect me. Instead, I learned how to stay small, how to avoid eye contact, how to anticipate moods, how to disappear inside my own house. The first time she hit me happened after my 17th birthday. 20 minutes late, that was all. The slap came fast and hard, my head snapping sideways as pain bloomed across my face. The shock hurt worse than the impact. "You live here because I allow it," she hissed, her fingers digging into my arm. When I showed Dad the marks, he barely looked. "What did you do to provoke her?" That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, quietly. Because I understood then, deep in my bones, that no one was coming to save me. And the house I slept in every night, it wasn't a home anymore. It was a place where I counted days and learned to be afraid. By the time I realized Simone wasn't just strict, but cruel, It was already too late to pretend things could go back to normal. The rules multiplied like a living thing. Curfew became a moving target. 8:30 on school nights, 9:30 on weekends. If I arrived at 9:31, punishment followed. Written permission was required to see friends. My phone disappeared from my hands at exactly 9 p.m. every night, no exceptions, even when I needed it for homework. Chores weren't responsibilities. They were traps. Laundry, dishes, bathrooms, vacuuming, yard work. Every task done to her invisible standards. One glass left in the sink meant losing my phone for 3 days. Forgetting the recycling bin meant being grounded for a week. A backpack left in the hallway meant 2 weeks of isolation. Simone never yelled when she punished me. She smiled. A thin, satisfied smile that told me she enjoyed every second of control. Whenever I tried to push back, she cried to my father, "She's so hostile, Gerald. She hates me. I'm trying so hard to build a family." He never asked for my side first. He confronted me already convinced. "You need to stop being difficult. She's only trying to help. You're jealous." Jealous. As if wanting safety made me petty. As if missing my mother was a crime. The comments came next, soft enough to deny, sharp enough to cut. "Those jeans are getting snug. Maybe skip the Pop-Tarts. That hairstyle doesn't do you any favors. Don't you want boys to notice you?" I learned to eat quietly, dress carefully, speak only when spoken to. She compared me constantly to other girls, nieces, daughters of friends, strangers on Instagram. So accomplished, so disciplined, so pretty. And then she'd look at me like I was unfinished. Every mistake became proof that I was the problem. Every punishment reinforced that I had no power. Dad watched all of it. Sometimes from the couch, sometimes from the kitchen table, always silent. When I begged him to intervene, he accused me of trying to sabotage his happiness. "You can't stand seeing me happy again," he snapped once. That hurt more than anything Simone ever said, because it told me exactly where I ranked. The first slap wasn't the last. After that night, physical abuse slipped into our lives like it belonged there. A shove against the wall when I moved too slowly. Fingernails digging into my arm when I talked back. A sharp yank of my ponytail that made my scalp scream. She was careful. Never where bruises were easily visible. I started wearing long sleeves, even during California summers. I stopped inviting my best friend Bridget over. I stopped talking about home at school. Shame wrapped around me like a second skin. I photographed the bruises secretly on my phone before she confiscated it each night. Proof I never showed anyone. Evidence I didn't know how to use. I counted days. Until 18. Until freedom. Until escape. My school counselor noticed something was wrong. After I fell asleep in third period history for the 4th time in 2 weeks, Mr. Pierce pulled me aside. "You seem exhausted, Clara," he said gently. "Distracted. Is everything okay at home?" The words pressed against my throat, desperate to escape. I wanted to tell him everything. Every slap. Every threat. Every night I cried silently into my pillow, but fear swallowed my voice. Fear of what would happen if I told. Fear my father would choose her, again. Fear of foster care. Fear of being believed and still sent back. "I'm fine," I lied, "just stressed." He didn't look convinced, but he let me go. The worst part wasn't the pain. It was the silence. The way my father's absence became a weapon she used against me. He didn't protect me. He enabled her. And that betrayal sank deeper than bruises ever could. The incident that changed everything started small. It always does. 2 months before my 18th birthday, I asked to go to a friend's party. Dad said yes. Simone overruled him immediately. "She has chores. I finished them yesterday." Not to my standards. Something inside me snapped. Months of control. Fear. Humiliation. Pain. "You're not my mother," I said. "You don't get to tell me what to do." The room went cold. Her eyes narrowed, calculating. "What did you just say?" "I said you're not my mother. You never will be." Dad stood up slowly from the couch. "Clara, apologize." "No," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. She hurts me, and you let her. That's when Simone walked toward the counter, toward the knife block. Her voice dropped to a whisper that terrified me more than screaming ever could. You ungrateful little brat. I froze. So did Dad. The knife gleamed under the kitchen lights. Simone, put it down, he said weakly. She didn't listen. She needs to learn who this family belongs to. I backed away, heart pounding so hard I thought it would break my ribs. Dad, please. And that's when he grabbed me from behind. His hands locked around my wrists like iron, dragged me toward the island. Dad, stop, I screamed. He didn't. He held me down, and I realized with devastating clarity that the man who was supposed to protect me had chosen her completely. What happened next would scar me forever. Time did something strange the moment my father grabbed me. It slowed, stretched, turned thick and suffocating. His arms wrapped around me from behind, locking my wrists together like restraints. I smelled the familiar scent of his aftershave, the same one he'd worn since I was a child, and for one terrifying second, my brain refused to accept what was happening. Dad, I gasped. What are you doing? He didn't answer. He dragged me forward, my socks slipping against the tile as I kicked and twisted, panic exploding through my chest. Hold her still, Simone shrieked. Her voice was sharp now, no longer controlled. Wild, electric. She needs to understand who runs this household. No, Dad, please, I begged, tears blurring my vision. Please stop her. He forced my right forearm down against the granite countertop. The stone was cold, unforgiving. You should have thought about that before you disrespected your stepmother, he said flatly. Not angry, not shouting, detached. That was the worst part. Simone stepped closer, the knife trembling in her hand. An 8-inch chef's knife, serrated edge catching the light, flashing silver. Her eyes weren't furious anymore. They were satisfied. Now everyone will know who you belong to, she said softly. The blade touched my skin. I screamed before it even cut. The pain was immediate, white-hot, blinding, consuming. The knife sliced through skin with deliberate pressure, not rushed, not hesitant. She carved slowly, methodically, as if savoring it. I thrashed, sobbing, my whole body shaking violently. Dad's grip never loosened. Blood spilled down my arm, warm and slick, pooling against the granite and dripping onto the floor. The smell of iron filled the air. I screamed until my throat burned raw. When she finished the first letter, she didn't stop. She continued. Carving. Pressing. Etching her ownership into my flesh. I felt myself dissociating, my mind floating somewhere above my body, watching from a distance because staying present was unbearable. When she finally stepped back, my arm was ruined. 2 grotesque letters, carved deep and angry into my skin. She admired her work like an artist stepping back from a canvas. There, she said with disturbing calm, now everyone will know. Dad released me. I collapsed to the floor, clutching my arm to my chest, rocking back and forth as sobs tore out of me uncontrollably. The physical pain was unbearable. The emotional pain was annihilating, because my father had just helped someone mutilate me. Clean that blood off my counter, Simone said, already turning away, and don't even think about going anywhere tonight. She walked out of the kitchen. Dad followed her. Neither of them looked back. I stayed on the floor for several minutes, shaking, bleeding, trying to breathe through the agony. My sleeve was soaked through. Blood smeared the tiles beneath me. That was the moment I knew. If I stayed, I would die in that house. Maybe not tonight, but eventually. I wrapped my arm tightly in a dish towel, wincing as fabric pressed against the open wounds. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped my phone when I picked it up. I texted Bridget. Emergency, need help now, please. She responded immediately. OMW. Are you okay? Number, just hurry. I packed a duffel bag in a blur. Clothes, documents, laptop, charger, everything I could grab in minutes. I didn't bother being quiet. If they came to stop me, I wasn't sure what would happen. When Bridget knocked, I ran. Out the front door, down the driveway, into her car. The second she saw the blood-soaked towel, she gasped. "Oh my God, Clara, what happened?" "My stepmother carved her initials into me," I whispered. My dad held me down. Her face went pale. "We're going to the hospital, right now." At the emergency room, everything moved fast. Nurses, gloves, bright lights, gentle voices. Someone peeled the towel away, and a nurse sucked in a sharp breath when she saw the wounds. They cleaned my arm carefully, numbing it before stitching where they could. The cuts were deep, deliberate. A detective arrived before I even realized the police had been called. She introduced herself calmly, pulling up a chair beside my bed. "I'm Detective Walsh," she said. "Can you tell me what happened?" I told her everything. Every slap, every shove, every rule, every punishment. And finally, the knife. She listened without interrupting, her expression grave. "Your father restrained you while she did this?" she asked. "Yes." "And you're 17? "Yes, I turn 18 in 2 months. She closed her notebook slowly. "This is child abuse and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. We're arresting both of them tonight." Relief flooded me. So did terror. The police went to my house that night. They arrested Simone and my father, both in handcuffs, both charged. I stayed with Bridget's family while the case moved forward. Her parents wrapped me in kindness I hadn't felt in years. "You're safe here," her mom told me softly. The scars on my arm were permanent. Raised, angry, red. The doctor told me they might fade over time, but they would never disappear completely. I would carry that night with me forever. And the worst betrayal of all, it wasn't the knife. It was knowing my father chose to hold me down. The trial took place 8 months later. 8 months of waiting. 8 months of nightmares. 8 months of learning how to exist in a body that no longer felt safe to live inside. I turned 18 during that time, quietly, without cake or candles. Bridget's parents took me out for dinner, hugged me gently, and didn't ask me to explain anything. Their kindness felt unreal, like something borrowed from someone else's life. The scars on my arm healed into something permanent. 2 raised letters. Angry, uneven, impossible to hide. When the case finally went to court, I had to sit in a witness chair and relive the worst night of my life in front of strangers. The courtroom smelled like old paper and disinfectant. The benches were hard. The air felt heavy. Simone didn't look at me. My father did. He looked smaller than I remembered, grayer. His shoulders slumped like the weight of his choices had finally caught up with him. When I testified, my voice shook at first. But then something surprising happened. I stopped shaking. I told the truth, every detail, every escalation, every moment of betrayal. Simone's attorney tried to tear me apart. He called me rebellious, emotional, provocative. He suggested she'd only been trying to discipline me. The prosecution didn't let that narrative stand. They showed photographs of my arm, medical records, the knife wounds, deliberate, slow, unmistakable. They showed the bruises on my wrists where my father had restrained me. They brought Bridget and her parents to the stand, describing my condition when I arrived at their house, bleeding, shaking, terrified. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. 5 hours that felt like 5 years. When they returned, I held my breath. Guilty on all counts. Simone was sentenced to 14 years in state prison. My father received 10 years as an accomplice. The judge didn't mince words. "What you did to your daughter was barbaric," she said. "You branded her like property. You failed in the most fundamental duty a parent has, to protect." When my father was allowed to speak, he turned toward me. Tears streamed down his face. "Clara," he said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Please forgive me." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Simone never apologized. She glared at me like I'd ruined her life. After sentencing, I tried to rebuild. Slowly. Painfully. I moved into a tiny studio apartment after high school, working part-time at a coffee shop while finishing my senior year. I went to therapy twice a week. My therapist, Dr. Naomi Winters, specialized in trauma. She helped me untangle years of gaslighting and guilt. "What happened to you was not your fault," she reminded me. over and over. I believed her intellectually. Emotionally, it took longer. People stared at my arm, asked questions. I learned to deflect, to lie when the truth felt too heavy. Eventually, I stopped hiding. The scars didn't disappear, but they changed meaning. I got accepted to UC Irvine with scholarships and financial aid. Studying social work felt like reclaiming something stolen from me, a chance to protect others when no one protected me. My father wrote letters from prison, long, rambling apologies, explanations, excuses. I didn't read most of them. 3 years into his sentence, his attorney contacted me. He wanted to see me. I thought about it for weeks. Closure is a complicated word. I agreed to one supervised meeting. Seeing him in prison was surreal. He looked broken, smaller, defeated. "I failed you," he said, his voice cracking. "I let her poison me. I hurt you in the worst way possible." "You held me down," I said calmly, "while she carved into my skin." He nodded, tears falling freely. "I'll carry that guilt forever." "I needed you to protect me," I said. "That was your job. And when it mattered most, you chose her." "I know." "I'm glad you're sorry," I continued. "But your regret doesn't erase what you did." He didn't argue. I left after 25 minutes. That was the last time I ever saw him. Simone filed multiple appeals, all denied. 5 years after the attack, I graduated with my degree. Today I work for a nonprofit supporting young people escaping abusive homes. I understand them. I see myself in their eyes. People sometimes ask if I regret calling the police. I don't. Reporting them saved my life. My father was released early on good behavior last year. He's tried to contact me through relatives. I've made my answer clear. Some betrayals are final. The scars on my arm have faded slightly over time, but they're still there. I considered removal, cover-ups, but I decided against it. These scars don't mark ownership. They mark survival. I'm 22 years old now. I have a life I'm proud of. A future that belongs to me. They tried to break me. Instead, I walked away whole, not unscarred, but free.